everybody? Welcome to Coffee Hour. It is Friday, the end of the week. Glad to have you here. Spend your day with us, at least the morning, get you started. Of course, we know you can be anywhere. We're glad you're here with us every week. Sorry, yesterday I was not feeling very well. Not feeling very well today, but I know that I'm breaking the curve. When you wake up in a puddle of sweat, you realize, I'm probably breaking it. And again, thank you all for joining me. Do me a favor, as always, let me know who you are, where you're from, in the comments, whatever platform you're listening on, whether you're watching on our Fast Tracks Tube, which I encourage it. We love that platform, and it's expanding. We added 4 new videos yesterday from Coffee Hours previously, so we're moving everything over there from our Fast Tracks, from the YouTube channel. So make sure you check that out if you're interested. If you're ever wondering why some of the videos may be disappearing on some of the social platforms, guys, because they're going to be they're migrating over to the Fast Tracks Tube, by the way. But you can watch us on Fast Tracks Tube. You can watch us on our YouTube channels. We have 2 YouTube channels, by the way. Coffee Hour with Paul. It doesn't have as many followers on that one, but we have Coffee Hour with Paul, which is just a rebroadcast, and then of course Master the NEC. And of course, over on LinkedIn, you can watch us on Paul Abernathy, which is my normal LinkedIn account. But we also have Electrical Code Academy as well on LinkedIn. I love to connect with you. That's our, the business platforms, not so much social media, but it's more business oriented. And of course, Facebook. We're on both the my personal one, which I'm only connected with about 30 people on Facebook. No, sorry, scratch that. About 130 people. Those are folks I went to school with. And things like that. So I'm not really big in the Facebook sharing thing. But obviously we have Master the NEC channel, which is quite popular. That is over on Facebook. So you can watch there as well. All right. So that, and you can also watch over on fasttracksystem.com as well. We've added that feature over there. Now, of course, you can do as a lot of people do. They literally do watch the show from their mobile phone, because if you have our free app, then you can get everything and be able to get to our blogs. You can chat and post pictures to everybody that has the app. Maybe you're on a job site and you want to snap a picture or something and ask opinion of folks. I'm frequently on there, so I'll give an opinion if I see it. And of course, we have the blogs, and you can listen to podcasts on there. You can join the show here every morning directly from your phone if you're commuting. Don't watch it, but if you get to the job site, you can watch it from there, that type of thing. So many ways for you to be able to actually join us, okay? All right, so I'll do some shout outs here in a second. Today we're going to just talk a little bit casually about calculations, and I do see a need for us to do, some deeper calculation videos. Of course, they will only be on Fast Tracks Tube. Explaining certain things about balancing loads and when you're doing a load calculation, and maybe you're doing, there's an outside service disconnect, and maybe it's a feeder going in, and there's calculations for that feeder and the loading that takes place, and to realize that there's a cancellation that can take place on certain loads if they're, like a quarter horsepower on this one leg, and then you have it on the other leg, then it can balance out and it can affect your load calculation. So typically we don't teach it that way because we want to be the worst case scenario. And when you're in a situation where you have, let's say, 4 or more appliances, you get to have a discount anyway when you're dealing with the standard method. You get the 75% allowance. That type of thing. When you're doing the optional method, you get you're getting a better discount in a sense, right? So anyway, we'll cover all that stuff in future videos. But if you haven't watched my calculation videos over on Fast Tracks Tube, you definitely want to check them out. Okay, so get an opportunity, check out Fast Tracks Tube. We did add some new videos. Let's see here. So we'll talk a little bit about the calculation form that we use and a couple of misconceptions about this form. And the reason this is I got an email from a gentleman who was in our program, but was doing a load calculation for a dwelling. It is really an obscure calculation. So I'm actually going to do that calculation in a video. and make it available. I don't think you have to worry about that for an electrical exam because I don't think that they're going to ever be able to force you, make you do a full load calc. You may be doing pieces of a load calc, right? Whether or not you're doing the small appliance or the general lighting and general use receptacles with the small appliance in the laundry, and then you apply demand factors to that. Overall, I think they might ask you pieces of that type of thing, right? But we keep it simple. Other thing I'll tell you, I'm sweating like a pig today. The other thing that I will tell you is on an exam, if you're doing a calculation for a load calc, in the real world, it doesn't matter either. But in a calculation, I just tell people all the time, a lot of times people stress on an exam or preparing for an exam or even a real world is that you want to get the exact number that's on the exam. I tell you, you don't always have to do that. I'm telling you, the most time on an exam, if your number doesn't match exactly, like you forgot the additional 25% for the largest motor or something like that in 220.50 and all that kind of stuff, that's okay. You're going to get close enough. So you take the number that's closest, right? Closest to whatever your calculation comes out. And you know what? That's the best approach because either you got it or you don't, right? You're not going to sit there and spend forever on a calculation, especially on an exam. You got a limited amount of time. And in the real world is enough factors in there that it's really not going to matter. You just need to get in the ballpark because a lot of people will say, well, no, it needs to be exact. Well, that's full of crap because majority of the people that do installations out in the field, they don't even do a load calculation. They just go, oh, that's a 200 or that's a 400. So they're not even doing a calculation, but they're okay with just picking an arbitrary number, that type of thing. So again, I wouldn't stress it. I tell people all the time, a lot of times when people get exam prep focused, they stress out over the minutia. And you can't get in the mind of whoever wrote the test. Now, some of them are easy, but some of them, the way the test is written or the way the words are written, I try not to get bogged down in the minutia. But I will say we will do a video, and I don't know if I can turn that into a coffee hour. I might be able to, where we talk about a load calculation on a dwelling that's, it could be a dwelling unit for a multifamily for the feeder that's going to that unit. It's easily could be translated, but it is a weird one. And the reason it's really going to have to be a single family dwelling because it talks about a pool pump motor. It talks about a grinder pump motor. It talks about I can't remember, a couple other things in their motors. And I think the student gets totally lost in the fact that, dude, most of these are still just appliances, right? And so you get to apply them as a fastened in place appliance. For example, an EVSE, it's appliance. But in the 2023 edition of the NEC, which is what I work out of most of the time anyway, in the 2023 edition of the NEC, they went out and said under 220.53, that is where we do the appliance calculation. This is a standard method, by the way. They said, you're not going to include things like ranges, ovens, all that, but also you're not going to include EVSE in the discount where you get the 75% when you have 4 or more appliances. You can't use it EV. So that tells us that we know that an EVSE, electric vehicle charging, so we know that that is an appliance because it's standardized. It meets the definition of appliance in Article 100. However, they're going out of their way to say, yeah, but we're not going to let you apply the demand factors to this, okay? And in fact, in the 2023 code, they now have a value that you would use for doing a load calculation with if you have EVSE, okay? So anyway, those are the kind of things that we'll talk about a little bit today. Let's do a little shout outs real quick. Paul, what's up? Glad to have you here. What's up, Jonathan? Glad to have you here. What's up, Frank? Absolutely. It is Friday. I have no idea why I'm still sweating like a pig. I think I'm still, look at that shiny forehead there. I think I'm still suffering from this flu, but hopefully it gets better today. What's up, Brandon? Congratulations are in order for Brandon. All of y'all give a shout out to Brandon. passed his Texas exam, sent me that over the weekend. Or not over the weekend, just a couple days ago. So y'all remember he was working on it hard, diligently. So he was successful. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. What's up, Frank? Thank you. Paul, looks like you made it to another Beatbox Friday. My throat is totally tore up. I am not going to be beatboxing today. I'll give you a little clicking. You ready? There we go. That's it. That's all I got. Throat is tore up. Okay. Adam, good morning. Yes, I'm going to try to get some. We have a lot of stuff we need to record over the weekend. So, every time I plan for a weekend in the studio, for example, and I try not to do that very often because you know what? It takes away from the time with the family, with the wife. But at the end of the day, it's just so much to be done. And I can't do it during the day in many cases. So that's why I do this coffee hour early. Okay. I work on Central Time. That's why Eastern Time is when I do most of my stuff. So I don't know if that makes sense. What's up, Rob? I'm feeling a little better, still sweaty today or whatnot. So I guess it's breaking. I don't know enough about it. I haven't had a cold in, years. So this is uncharted territory for me. I usually don't get sick. So what's up, Jay? Glad to have you here. I got all the winds coming in here. What's up, Terrence? Glad to have you here, my friend. Let's see. There you go. Brandon. There we go, folks. Y'all give Brandon some love here. Hold on. I got some love for you. Congratulations. What's up, Manny? We knew you could do it. Thank you, Frank. Hopefully I will feel much better. What's up, Lance? Glad to have you here. Jonathan is a fast track student working through the program. You know, funny thing, I had somebody post, I opened up, by the way, on my TikTok channel. I have a board of directors. Now, I've explained this to everybody what this means because everybody knows, this is funny. Everybody knows that I'm the CEO. What I say goes here at the Academy. Don't get me wrong. But I do have a board of directors that helps make decisions. And I call them my rational thinking board, okay? And what that is a group of volunteers that I utilize who I agree, if they agree, that sometimes I make impulsive and irrational decisions. So I put together a group of individuals that are friends, that are not necessarily electrical experts. A couple of them are pretty good, but at the end of the day, I bounce things off of them and I allow them to review certain things, and they are supposed to be just brutally honest to me. And so while I make all the decisions, y'all might have heard me refer to the board. It's a rational thinking board that we have, which is voluntary. And basically, it's a group of friends that agree to be totally honest with me. And so what they do is on certain things, they just brutally honest with me. And and they're usually business oriented people, and they know about business and they know about my stuff. And recently it was a TikTok thing, and I'm a notorious banner, by the way, on TikTok. You say anything to me that I don't like, I just ban your ass. And they came back and said something, and said that I needed to unban everybody. So I did. I unbanned everybody except for a couple people. So because I was like, I agree, and keep it, people tell me all the time, they say, Paul, keep it to code. Like my channels are just code related, but they're pretty much everything. But when it comes to TikTok, I unbanned everybody. Still don't allow comments to be seen unless I approve them, because I'm not going to let people taint it. But at the end of the day, I had somebody post on there. Again, there's haters everywhere who said, your fast tracks doesn't work. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing that and I'm a brutally honest guy. When somebody says something doesn't work, I want to know why. I want to know why you think it doesn't work. Because it's based on the National Electrical Code. It's based on a repetitious process of me feeding you information, giving you code references. You go into NEC. If you supplement it with the videos, you can go to Fast Tracks Tube and watch videos that'll explain stuff. And so it's really a system Not just flipping through the code book. It can make it harder, struggling. You might get it, but it's going to take you longer than it normally would. And so we're all about consolidating time and making something structured. Doesn't mean you can't learn without our program, because you certainly can, but to sit there and make a comment. So anyway, this was a normal suspect. This was a normal person that no matter what I say, he's going to come on there and say something smart ass. I mean, I could tell right away when I saw it. So I was like, okay, I get it. But we get comments from people almost daily on how successful they've been. And we're not reinventing the wheel. It's just how it's delivered. That's the only difference. Okay. So it's not something special. It's just how it's delivered. What's up, Lance? I'm an experienced electrician and wired up a whole house by myself. There you go. Okay. I have literally, and people question that, I literally have done thousands of houses. And I love doing residential. When I cut my teeth, me and my brother cut our teeth from 1986, probably, until probably in the 95, we literally were pumping out houses. I mean, and then of course we switched to the we did commercial stuff, but we really then shifted to the multi-million-dollar houses because there was more money in it. And we stopped just doing the numbers. For a while there, we were doing the numbers, right? The spec homes, just boom, boom, churn and burn. But then we realized that we needed to do something a little different. That's what we did, that type of thing. Let's see here. Lance, coming up, I have a job and I need a master license to sign off on my work. Okay. And either become a master yourself, that type of thing. Can't help you with that, my friend. Good luck. Good luck with that. What's up, Red Dog? Buenos dias. Glad to have you here. Hold on, I got the music for the dog here. Hold on. Woo, 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 woo. Big dog. Let's see here. How do I find a master to sign off on my work? Well, in your area, I mean, you can go and, I mean, if you were to come to my area, let's say you came to me and assuming your state allows this, I don't know. I'm just saying, assuming this is acceptable practice and a master has to sign off. If I was doing it, I'm going to charge you a fee, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to fine-tooth comb your entire project. I'm not going to take your word for it. I don't care whether you've done one house or 50 million houses. I'm going to walk through it. I'm a master electrician. I'm not signing and putting my license on the line for anything unless I walk through it and I look at everything. And of course, you're going to pay me for that, obviously, right? And I'm sure you have no problem with that. But yeah, I don't know. People most of the time asking a master electrician, for example, if your state allows you to do what you're saying, it's kind of like Texas. See, right? Texas, you can be an owner, but you're not the designated master on record. So the owner is the owner. So they're responsible for the contracting business. Now, a lot of times that's the master electrician too. These are owner, but there is an allowance for that to take place, that you can be the owner of an electrical contracting business, and then there's just you have people that's the master on record, that type of thing. I just go around and find some masters in your area. If they allow that in your area, you're going to have to go out and look for some. Call electrical contractors and say, can you subcontract them? In other words, can you have them come out and do an electrical inspection? You'll pay for it and get the sign off from a master. And that's all you can do is talk to them, see what they'll do. Let's see here. Everybody's showing some love to Brandon here. I love it. What's up, Edgar? Glad to have you here. Anselmo, glad to have you here. Happy Friday. Let's see. What's up, Rob? Glad to have you here, my friend. Welcome. Everybody's showing some love. Let's see. No, Lance, you're fine. You can ask any question you want. Any question you want. But that's if you need if your state allows you to do that, right? If you're trying to do it and get a master to sign something that's not above board, then no, this probably isn't the place. But if your state allows you to do the work and have a master sign off on it, then it's no biggie. Just try to find a master in your area that's willing to do that. But I have had people in the past through the years, back when I was back here in Virginia as a contractor, I've had some people do their own wiring, and they want me to sign off on it like I did it, and I would never do that. Just to sign off on something to get them so they could do it. No, in most states, an owner can do their own work anyway, so they wouldn't need a master, that type of thing. But if you're an electrician, if you're doing work, say as a journeyman, and the rules require that a master sign off on it, or that your state allows that, then just call some contractors, call some master electricians. I'm sure you'll find one or two that maybe for a fee will come out and look at everything, because they can do that. They can walk the job site and look at it. I don't have a problem signing on something if I walk the job site and I look at it like a supervisor would, and I look at your stapling, I look at the work, and that says a lot, because I can look at work and tell whether or not I got to look deeper or not, depending on. That's why I tell people all the time, if you're neat with your work, it gets less scrutiny, right? That type of thing. So that's the kind of stuff. No, you're fine. Let's see here. Everybody's loving up on Brandon. It's a good feeling, isn't it, Brandon? Let's see. What's up, Cray Cray? Thank you, Cray Cray, down in Nashville. Glad to have you here. Let's see here. What do we got here? Colton, good morning. First time here. Any recommendations for someone looking to get into the commercial controls? Seems interesting, and my company doesn't have anyone educated with it. Just thinking about it. There are courses out there that do controls, control wiring. We used to have a motor control course, but we discontinued it because it just didn't get. I'm the kind of guy, when we put out products, we put them out there for a certain length of time, and then they're on reviews. So we cover the traffic, how much visitors are going to it, how our promotion, and we don't do a lot of promotion, but we look at it and we determine whether or not we want to continue on with such a program. So the motor control thing that we did, the course that we did, we just killed it. But there are plenty of them out there. I recommend you just go to Google. And one of the easier ways to do it is go to ChatGPT or TradeHog and type in there, give me a list of courses online that teach electrical controls or remote control or whatever, kind of be very specific on what you want, because you're only going to, it's that old saying when it comes to ChatGPT as well as Google, crap in, crap out, right? If you ask it something crappy, it's going to give you a crappy result. So just be as specific. But yeah, if your company wants to get into that and nobody else is doing it, that's a great way for you to become invaluable to that company, because you learn a specialty. And of course, it's not going to hurt you to learn. And we're always starving to learn more stuff. I never did. One of the other reasons we got rid of it is because of motor controls. I'm okay with motor controls and remote control applications and PLCs. Very limited. Nothing like Angry is. He loves doing that stuff. But I realized that I was teaching courses on it, but I was not the expert in the room. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of educators aren't. They teach something because of its course material. But I did not like it because I got a lot of questions, and I could answer the questions, but it was a struggle for me. And it's like I realized that, while I know it, I don't put myself off as an expert in that type of thing. So I said, you know what? I just will. And we're also talking about programmable and logic and all this type of circuit board, everything you program. I'm just not that guy. So that's why we got rid of it. But yeah, definitely go get it. Go learn it. Take that opportunity. What's up, Crypto? Glad to have you here. Absolutely, Lance. Absolutely. I'm sure that you'll find a master electrician in your area that's more than willing to sign off, as long as you make it up front. Tell them, can you please do a full inspection? Because I want you to feel comfortable before you sign off on it. Okay. Now, you're in Texas. So a lot of times in Texas, out in the jurisdictions, they don't have any inspection process. So you still have to do it in accordance with the state. But there are a lot of areas out in Texas that, and I moved back here from Texas. There's a lot of areas out there that don't have inspections at all, that type of thing. So, again, everything's a little unique in different parts of the country, that type of thing. Absolutely. Yo says that's a big no-no in Indiana. Welcome, Yo. Glad to have you here. Adrian, good morning. Glad to have you here. Pedro, good morning. Glad to have you here. David A., good morning. Glad to have you here, my friend. Let's see here. Colton says, I respect that. Feel like people in the field are comfortable saying they don't know something. I'll look into it. Yeah, I find people that, that's the thing as educators. It's funny that we're learning every day, regardless of whether we want to call ourselves an expert in something. I am definitely an expert when it comes to wiring cable, obviously, because over the last 11 years, I've focused a lot of research and time on that. But at the end of the day, I know the NEC very well. I can teach somebody to understand the NEC and pass an exam, and that's kind of what I do. Do I think that I'm as knowledgeable or more knowledgeable than somebody that like a Ryan Jackson? Absolutely not. Ryan Jackson has an amazing grasp of the electrical. Educator wise, we do kind of the same thing, but he has an amazing grasp, and he has a very much of an openness that he will tackle things. So again, we're all educators. We all learn something new every day. I learned something funny. I learned something new the other day that during this NITMAM thing that I participated in, and I was falsely saying that during a NITMAM, when some cam comes and it changes something that the code panel did, that if it goes back to the code panel. Well, it does go back to the code panel. But whatever it is, if they don't agree with the change, then and it's different than what they put out there in the second draft, then it ends up reverting back to whatever the code was in the 2023 NEC, for example. I didn't know that. I have not been involved with enough of these arguments, whereas usually when most of the stuff that I submit, it either gets into the code in the second draft, it doesn't make it to a CAM. It doesn't make it to an argument stage. It just gets in the code. So I honestly was not overly involved in the process of how this gets kicked back to the previous edition of the code. So I learned something new the other day. I thought it was great because every time we can learn something new, we learn a little tidbit of something, in the code, that type of thing. Let's see, what's 390 racing? I got approved for my master's test in Texas. What videos do you recommend me watching to help me prep for the exam? We have exam prep courses right here. We recommend our courses. If you're just going to watch videos, I recommend that you go get our subscription to our Fast Tracks Tube. If you're not going to get a course, then I recommend Fast Tracks Tube because there are videos in there that are just specific to calculations. They're specific to code lookup. We have some Wednesday night recordings that are in there where I sit with students. We don't do Wednesday nights anymore, but we do the exam prep type questions and things like that. But our program is going to have over 1,000 exam prep style questions built into it. Plus it walks you through the NEC. So it really is a matter of how you want to study. I will tell people right up front, and I let people know this, and you've heard me say this, so I don't waffle on this. I do not believe watching videos is the only way you should study. And in fact, I don't even believe it's the best way to study. The problem is, I'll give you a great example. I binge watched the entire series of The Big Bang Theory, okay? Because my brother turned me on to it. I don't know why I didn't watch it in 2007 and 6 and whatever it was when it was out there, because it's a great series. I binge watched it. I'm still seeing episodes now that I don't remember any part that I watched. I was like, I watched every episode, but I don't remember that. I don't remember that. A classic example is we get so focused on watching videos that we sometimes will miss things that we do when we read it. So our program was really based on reading the information, going to code references, going into the code book, read it, coming back to the lesson, and then the videos that we use in our enhanced program, the videos are used as a supplement, okay? They hammer home the lesson that we have in the course. So we don't have a video course. I'm just not a big believer in 100% video. I might change my mind, but I think that in all cases, I believe it has to be supplemented with actual language, the verbiage. I I can't make myself not do that. I've been doing this for too long and I've had way too many successful students to believe that videos. I know there's a guy out there that sells a video only course on YouTube, and that's great if that's what you want to do. But I know that I get enough students that come to me that say they needed to come to me because they just didn't grasp the concept. I'm not downing his program. I don't know anything about his program. I don't know anything about his teaching. I'm only telling you about my experience and what I know about visual only type of education. That's it. People say, well, I'm a learner. I see visually. Well, that's a problem because if you can't read something and dissect it and pull out the core information, then when you sit down for an exam, you're going to have a problem because your reading comprehension. So that's why we want to work on your reading comprehension because people will freak out during a test. So, and in the real world, videos aren't going to help you if you're out in the field and you need to analyze something and go look at the code book. I need you to be able to read it, understand it, dissect it. So I'm just a big believer. That's why we created Fast Tracks Tube, to be a supplement to your education, not the primary directive of your education. Does that make sense? That's just our approach. People agree with it, disagree with it. That's fine. That's just our approach to it. So anyway. What's up, XV2X? What's up, Poppy? I see you in the house. Let's see here. Let's see. Terrence says, I do permits, but they must be journeyman card, and I'll walk through. It must be neat and definitely up to code. There you go. If you're in Maryland, Virginia, or Delaware, where are you at, Terrence? Virginia, DC, Virginia, and Maryland. If you're in the area where he is, call up Terrence. He'll hook you up. Jonathan says, how did I learn the NEC like you know it? Jonathan, I tell people all the time when I'm talking on stage or used to do that, I used to do this a lot. I mean, I do it, obviously teach it a lot now, but I used to do that. I mean, I live and breathe it every day for nearly 40 years. If you don't learn it in that period of time, then something's wrong with you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know what you're doing because you've done it. Well, when I'm teaching code, I mean, how many times do you think that I teach people how to do a single family dwelling calculation that at some point I've done it so many times that it's just rattle it off, right? Same thing. So the fact of the matter is electricians out in the field don't go into the code book that often. So it's hard to memorize it. And if we don't use it, we lose it. It just so happens that when I transitioned from out in the field, which, yes, by the way, I was working electrician in the field. I know these beautiful, pristine hands and this wonderful complexion would not give you any hint that I was actually out there in crawl spaces and attics. I get it. I understand. My haters out there. Paul teaches because he can't do it. I hear you. But reality is, if you do something for a certain length of time, you just get better at it. So when it comes to understanding NEC, if you want to, that's why I tell people, and that's why I created the CMECP program. Was just another layer of taking people and keeping them learning, keeping them studying, learning a little more, keep doing a little more. I'm selfish. It wasn't about the money because, again, we limit the number of CMECPs that come into our program, very limited, and a high percentage fail. Okay, but they focus and keep teaching you new code, keep learning, because again, we're only on this rock one time. The moment I think I know it all, I'm done. Because, boy, life would be boring. I have a friend of mine who retired 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatnot. Now he's ready to go back to work. I said, what do you mean? Don't you enjoy retirement? He says, no, I hate it. And he's an electrical plans examiner. It's Jeff. He actually took over when he works for me, but he wants, this is more of a part-time gig for him, but he's really retired. And when he started doing some work for me, it was to get him back into it because he just was literally, he got bored to death. And so he's like, it ain't cracked up what it used to be. So he's engaged back in it and it keeps him in it. So that type of thing. Let's see here. Let's see here. Adam says, does anybody know how it works in Alabama? I moved here next year and instead he just asking, you're talking about licensure wise? I don't know. I'd say focus, get your own license so you don't have to rely on somebody else. That's what I would recommend. What's up, Van Man? Happy Friday. You got your card. Congratulations. Glad you got it. Let's see here. Terrence says, and in Texas. But Terrence, do you actually go out to Texas to walk the jobs? Do you? I mean, will you go all the way out to Texas to do that? Or is that just the ones you'll do back here? I don't know. I'm Texas as well. I ain't going back out there to walk nothing and look at nothing. And I'm not going to sign off on anything I can't physically put my hands on, my eyes on, that type of thing. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. All right, let's talk a little bit. So this, by the way, this is our form, one of our forms, okay, that is in our Fast Tracks program. Jeff is making it aware to me before I did this, talked about this show, and we're going to talk about load calcs a little bit, low motors and stuff. Some of the low-hanging fruit that people seem to ask me lately. He asked me, am I going to make these forms available? And he wants to make them available for purchase, just a small purchase. I don't know that I want to do that because anybody can Google and find these forms, different ones like this. There's nothing spectacular about these forms. But any student that's going through a calculation needs to use these forms. And I tell students all the time, if you are going to go through the process of calculating, even after you get your license, right? If you're going to actually, because some people get their license, they don't calculate another damn thing. They never calculate anything. They just, they just go off experience and they don't ever really do a calc. But I tell people when you get these forms, print them out and get them laminated. They make great bookmarks for your code book. And we have them for the standard method, optional method, multifamily, non-resident, non-dwelling type of application. So commercial, we have these forms and they're usable. And you can get a dry erase pen, like a dry erase marker. And you can use these over and over and over again if you want. Okay. So any of that type of thing. So the one thing I'll say about tests, Jonathan says Alabama is tough compared to Tennessee. One thing I will say with extreme certainty, okay, is that I think that if you truly understand the National Electrical Code, and when it comes to an exam, if you truly put in the work and you get a structured plan and you learn the code, there is no state's test that's harder than the other. It's all code. Now, some states have additional things, right? Depending on the state, they might have some OSHA requirements, or they might have some local rules, state-specific stuff that's on their exam. They may have something for some fire alarm that's on it. I know Florida, for example. Florida, there's some that whether you're getting unlimited licensing and all, they're going to ask you things that are not just the NEC. Well, of course, we only focus on the NEC. So people ask me, what do I do for those other things? Well, there are other books you can get. And that's why I want to condition people to realize that videos alone, again, should not be the main focus. You need to really learn, okay? You really need to learn how to read something and comprehend it. So there are books available, Dwayne asks, are there any books available for business law and other type of things? We have on our website, we have some partnerships that have some of the stuff like the law and everything. I don't know if we have it on our site. I'll go check. I don't remember what they are. We don't offer it because, again, I tell people all the time, I am, as I say to people all the time, I am, let me go here real quick. I am an NEC guy. I have no desire to learn the OSHA and everything for every state. I don't have the time or the bandwidth to do it. But if you go under courses, for example, and you scroll down, you'll see here, it says business law for contractors, right here. Click on it. And here's the partnerships that we have. So here's Georgia. So yeah, we have a business law. We have a partnership for this course right here. So if you click on it, right? And there you go. Let's see here. So here's the business law. Okay. And you'll, wait a minute. Let me share this screen here. Hold on. I'll get you. Oops, that's wrong. Let me see if I can share this. Hold on for a second, guys. Something's not working. Hold on. Typical Friday. Okay, so it's an example right here, and I scroll down. You can't see it, but there you go. So that's fairly cheap. So there's a Georgia business law continuing education. The business law portion, and it will talk about requirements to fulfill Georgia's business and law continuing ed part, that type of thing. So what I can promise you is that will teach you, right, the stuff that you need to know about the law and business in Georgia, okay? And regardless of whether it's continuing ed, it's still basically based on teaching you that, okay? All right, so let's see here. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so here you see, so we have them on our website for quite a few. Ohio, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Tennessee. So this is the business law stuff. Now, when it comes to things like OSHAs and stuff like that, I recommend you get what they recommend. So it's an OSHA book, and it's basically you get to take that in with you. And those are pretty cut and dry. All you do is sit down and highlight some of the key things about OSHA, whether you need certification or not, yada, yada. Then it's going to be easy for you, okay? You don't have to. I would not get a course for OSHA. Okay, I just wouldn't for that. It's pretty straightforward, but it will tell you, the state will tell you if it's a PSI exam, for example, they'll tell you what OSHA books you need, and they're acceptable in the exam. You can take them in there with you, right? Business law and stuff, I do find that most people, the reason I don't teach it is because most people can download that, and it's not very big. And usually when it comes to business laws, be honest with you, when it comes to business law and things like that, contracts, it's pretty common sense, right? They're really going to focus on expiration dates. What's the penalty if you don't get your license in time? What's the time frame you have to renew a license? What's the penalty if you don't renew a license? All those things like that you're highlighting because those are easy, low-hanging fruit for exams. They're not going to ask you any obscure shit. They're going to ask you stuff that they're worried about, and that is what happens if you work without a permit, or what happens if this law or contract. Do you have to have signatures? Does every contractor have to have a license? For example, in Virginia, there's so many people that do work in Virginia, my brother included. He does this, even though I tell him not to do this. He will do work for people without a written contract. You should never, ever do work for anybody. I know people are going to say, oh, Paul, relax. I never did work for anybody other than service, other than going out in the middle of the night or going out for a service call to make things right, fix something. If it was contractual, in other words, I was charging a certain fee and it wasn't just an emergency fee or overnight call, I had a one-page contract. And in Virginia, it gives you the number of elements that you have to meet. And so it can be just one page, that type of thing. So that is also a neat thing about Office Hog. For those that haven't done it, Trade Hog has Office Hog if you're in the basic and enhanced package. You can actually, what's up, David? Glad to have you here. Then you can actually ask Trade Hog or even really Office Hog to create you a one-page contractor contract that is compatible with and input whatever your state is. And it will go and look it up and it will write you a contract. And I just get everybody to sign it, that type of thing, So there has been plenty of people that have lost their license, especially in Virginia. You can go look at the disciplinary action. There are many people that have lost their license because they didn't do a simple contract. And you're all good until you get caught. I'm just saying. So anyway, let's see if I can't get back to where I need to be here. Hold on here. Something screwed up, folks. So bear with me. I have to get it back to wherever I was at. I'm sorry. I'm not even sure what the hell I did here. Hold on. Okay. All right. Back to where I was. Sorry about that. All right. So this is our form that you can get from our program, okay? There's nothing special about it. The only thing with this form, when you're doing a load calculation, whether it's optional or standard, is you want to start learning calculations in a step process, because on an exam, they could ask you any piece. The chances of them asking you the entire calculation, that type of thing, is slim and none, okay? Because you usually don't have enough time on a test, right? So you want to do it in a way that you remember things, right? So in this calculation, for example, you see that we talk about the standard method, and we talk about the general lighting and receptacle loads. Then you talk about the small appliance and the laundry, and then it culminates in a calculation that's going to allow for what we call demand factors that are in 220.45. We're in the 2023 NEC, by the way. All right, so that is all done in this part right here. That's why you see this bold line here. Oops, right here. This bold line right here, okay? Right? So this is the process right here. So anyway, and then we get to the fasten in place appliances. Notice it has water heater. And again, fasten in place is the same as a fixed appliance, okay, when it comes to the NEC. So it says fasten in place. What we're talking about is fixed appliances, okay? A garbage disposer is a fixed appliance. A dishwasher is a fixed appliance, okay? Trash compactor is a fixed appliance. Now, what I find a lot of people ask me when it comes to what all can be lumped into this appliance thing, if you're in the 2027 edition of the NEC, there isn't this threshold. In the 2027, when you think about appliances, for example, if you're doing your load calc, and again, it's much easier if you're doing the optional method than the standard, but you need to understand how to do the part 3 normal method because of exams, right? But in real world, you're never going to do that crap. You're always going to use the optional. I don't think you're ever going to use the standard method. So anyway, when it comes to fasten in place appliances, which also can encompass things like utilization equipment, an EVSE, for example, is a fasten in place appliance, unless it's a cord and plug. If it's a cord and plug, then you're going to calculate the load. If you're earlier in the NEC, before the 2023, for example, then you're going to follow the normal rules in 220.14, and you're going to account for the actual load and just add it to your load calculation. So the reason I say that is because if you look at our form, people think just because there's nothing extra here that I don't account for it. That is not true. So you may have not enough boxes to do what you got to do, right? But it may mean that you just add the load at the end out on the side or something. We can't account for everything here. Same as you, and the only reason I'm bringing this up for people is because a lot of times people get so focused on a load calculation that they think that I just have to follow a form, that I don't have some stuff that come in from the outside. Like for example, pool pump motor. So a pool pump motor is an appliance. And if it's fastened in place, then and it's in the structure, it's a pool pump motor. It's an appliance. It meets the definition of appliance. It's all those type of things. So there are other things, for example, that you look at and you say, well, under the 2023 code, I know that EVSE is an appliance. It's standardized. However, they go out of their way in the 2023 code. They go out of their way in 220.53 to remind you that is not to be added to the appliance calculation. Same with ranges, same with ovens, things like that. Because, same with dryers. Why? Because they have their own calculation. You follow their own calculation. You with me? That type of thing. Here's where I want to talk about where people get bogged down in the minutia. What if somebody says, "Well, Paul, I don't want to add my motor to the fasten in place appliance." Okay, that's fine. The only difference is if it truly qualifies an appliance and you have 4 or more, then you're going to get to apply a 75% demand factor to it, right? So if you take it separately, then you're not applying any demand factors to it, that type of scenario. You get what I'm saying? You're not applying any of the demand factors that you could apply to it. So one of the big arguments that people say is, how do I know the threshold of when something's an appliance or not? Right? That type of scenario. Well, you have to look at the NEC. And if we look at the NEC, and I'm going to hopefully, let's see if I get this right. Let's see here. There we go. If you go look at the NEC, and you really just kind of keep it simple, people over make this complicated than it needs to be. If I look at, because it really doesn't matter. Remember that thing I said earlier? It's going to get you close enough. So if you're looking to always hit the number, remember, you can't get into the head of the person that's writing the exam question. If it's a real basic one, obviously the numbers are going to match. Don't get so bogged down in that. If you do it and you leave something and off a little bit, it's probably not going to be enough VA that's going to make a whole hill of a beans difference. Go to the closest possible answer, okay? Whether it's over or under, go to the closest possible answer. And that's probably so. Appliances. It says utilization equipment, okay, generally other than industrial. So again, appliances are not going to be anything industrial. Of course, if we're talking about a dwelling, for example, it's not going to be applicable here, right? Because they're not going to be industrial. Okay, that is fastened in place, stationary, or portable, is normally built in standardized sizes or types. A washing machine, for example, a dryer, those type of things, a garbage disposer may have different looks by manufacturers, but that's just the outer look. They're pretty much, at the end of the day, they're going to be standardized. Anthony, you are definitely locked in on those things. All right, and is installed or connected as a unit to perform one or more functions, such as, again, clothes washer. Clothes washer is going to have the hot water, spin cycle motor, yada, 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 everything, okay? That type of scenario, okay? Here, air conditioning, right there. There you go, Anthony. So, yes. Now, the difference is we have to remember that we have separate rules. So that is the most important thing to realize, is that a lot of things can fall into the category of appliance, right? But there are other rules that are going to say you're going to do it differently. Now, just for craps and giggles, let's go to what exactly is utilization equipment. Okay. Now, in your case, this is where people get bogged down in the minutia. I'll use Anthony. I'll use yours as an example, right? The AC condenser is one of those things where the code is going to be very specific about it. It is definitely electrical equipment, okay? At least the components that go to it. The HVAC system itself, the actual AC condenser, I probably would not call that electrical equipment, but it is supplied by electrical equipment. And it has an access panel on it. And of course, you have requirements for the access panel. So be more specific. Andy, tell me where your concern is, Anthony, so that I can kind of dig down deeper, because I don't want to assume anything. So is there a reason you're talking about working clearance? Is that why you want to qualify it as electrical equipment versus utilization equipment? Help me out. Help me out with where your question's kind of going. Because other than that, I'd just be guessing and going all over the place. So let's see here. So utilization equipment right here. And utilization equipment says equipment that utilizes electric energy for electronic, electromechanical, chemical, heating, lighting, or similar purpose. That type of scenario. Okay. Now, as far as, let's see here. Let's go back up and look under. Let me go back up here real quick. Okay, so let's look at equipment. Okay. Equipment is a general term including fittings, devices, appliances, luminaires, apparatus, machinery, and the like used as part part of or in connection with an electrical installation, right? So I would say for purposes of us, the AC condenser itself is obviously HVAC, folks. But I would say as far as our concerned, since we have so many rules in 440, and it connects to the electrical system, that it's definitely equipment. Now, whether or not it's electrical equipment, that type of thing, okay? Yeah, and I don't comment on building codes either because I don't care about them. So I try, I know my lane very well. I do not, people ask me questions all the time about other things, and they say, well, Paul, you should because you need to know building stuff as an electrician. I'd say, no, I don't. I'll defer that to the building official or whatever. I don't get into those things, that type of thing. So let's see here. Now, when it comes to, let's see here. Hold on here. What was I going to do something real quick? I think my mind was on something. I don't know. I don't know where my mind was going. I thought I went here to do something, but I guess I didn't. Hey, what was I going to do? Something. I wanted to look at something else. Oh, I guess I didn't look at something else. Let's see here. Anthony says someone's trying to get out of 210.8F requirement. The mini split they were wanting to use wasn't listed, so the exception didn't apply. Well, the point is, the fact of the matter is, there is an outlet. 210.8F is a point where we take power from the system. So it doesn't matter what that mini split is. Actually, this rule was written for the mini split. The point where it takes power from the system, whether there's a disconnect there or not, you're taking power from the building wiring to supply the piece of equipment, which clearly would probably fall under the category when it comes to a mini split, probably fall under the category of an appliance. Other than that, it's still HVAC, so we have our separate rules for HVAC type of things. Oh, I know what I wanted to go look at. I'm sorry. I know what I wanted to go look at real quick. I wanted to show, bear with me here. Let me go back to, hold on here, 53. Here we go. I knew where I wanted to go. So you see here, when it comes to the appliances, it specifically rules out air conditioning equipment, space heating equipment. Okay, here's where they add electric. So it knows very well that the air conditioning equipment is an appliance. It's just specifically calling these out. Why? Because we have our own allowance for a VA value for this. There is a separate method for calculating this and this and this and this, right? So we follow those other rules in 220.54, 55, okay? All those type of things. We follow those rules. So again, they're very much under, the code very much understands that those fall under the category of an appliance, right? It's just basically saying, you know what, as far as where you're going to be able to get a reduction, we're not going to let you do that. We're not going to let you. This is standard method only. Now, as far as when it comes to, here's what's interesting. When it comes to the optional method, it just lets you take nameplate on everything, right? The last part, you do have an AC versus heat application, but for everything else, it's just one big hodgepodge of, oh, let me take everything. You still have your 3 VA per square foot. You still have your small appliance brand circuit, your laundry, but then at the end of the day, it says take nameplate of everything and throw it in this big cauldron of everything. And now we're going to apply it. So 100% to the first 10,000 and 40 to the remainder. So that's a massive discount, but you're simply taking nameplates, everything. So when it comes to the standard method, the question becomes, what if I have this pool pump motor? Okay. Where do I add that in my list? People ask me this all the time. I'm doing a load calculator. Where do you add it in the list? If it's not nice and nifty in this little table here, people seem to get confused. Well, that's why we give you these extra blanks, by the way. Because I would say a pool pump motor that's fastened in place is an appliance. Now you say, well, Paul, I'm not going to treat it as an appliance, okay? I'm going to treat it separately and add it to the load calculation separately. That's fine if you want to do that. In fact, if you look at this form, that's actually what you have to do for your EVSE. There is nowhere on here for you to put the EVSE in here. But in the 2023 code, as I'll show you, you have to account for EVSE if you're going to have an EVSE. If you're going to have one, you have to account for it right here. And it's 7,200 watts or the nameplate, whichever is larger, right? So this kind of hammers it home. So when you look at this form, you're thinking, well, where the hell do I put that in here? I mean, there's no room for that in here, right? So you can't put it up here because remember what 220.53 said, not count the EVSE. So you're just going to add this to whatever your VA is at the end. You're just going to add this to it. You're going to add the EVSE, the 7,200 or the nameplate, whichever is greater. You're just going to add it to it. You can do that for the motors as well if you want. I would argue that it's going to be something that I would include all of those things that are fastened in place that I would consider motors, to be appliances, to be added up here. Okay, that type of thing. That's what I would say. And the reason for that is I would have to go to the, I would go to the definition. And if I go to the definitions in the NEC and I look at it, I'm going to say, well, is that motor to that pool pump an appliance? Well, let me go down to the appliance again and see. It says utilization equipment generally other than industrial that fastened in place, stationary or portable is normally used, built in standardized sizes and type. I would argue they are. Is installed or connected as a unit to perform one or more functions, okay, such as a clothes dryer. Now remember the such as language, guys. Such as language is basically is kind of a catch-all, right? A such as means this isn't the only list, okay? This isn't the only thing. These are just some examples, right? I think a lot of people get lost into these such as things and they think that that's it. No, these are just some examples, that type of scenario. Deep fryer, food mixer, all those type of things. Those are example of appliances. But now, what I will tell you is if I did not do this and put that motor for, let's say, fastened in a pool pump motor, if I did not put that in my calculation for the appliances, how much would that make a difference? Okay, so if I just took the VA, if I just took the FLC of the motor and I argued that it was an appliance. Okay, I'm talking real world here, guys, and close enough for an exam. If I took it and I said, well, if it was, I'm just going to throw a number, just a number. If I'm 3,400 VA for this motor, and I take that, and it's a motor, and I divide that by 240, let's say, then that is 14 amps, okay? Just 14 amps. If I take this 3,400, let's see here, okay, 3,400 now, and I take that and multiply that by 0.75, that gives me 2,550. Then I divide that by 240, that is 10. So we're literally talking one motor in a dwelling unit. It's one motor and it's 4 amps. So where I can apply the 75%, I might save 4 amps on that one motor. Okay. And so again, in the real world, you're not going to have enough of them. So if I included it with the fastened in place. Now, one of the things that did change for the 2023 edition of the NEC was, I think it changed in the 2020, but it made it clear that when you're talking about the appliances, that the appliances that you're going to include in this list that you might be able to apply this demand factor to, is that they anything that is 500 watts or VA or greater, or a quarter horsepower or more. So a quarter horsepower or more, or 500 watts or greater, are going to be able to use in this appliance. So this eliminates things like the bathroom exhaust fans. This eliminates things like ceiling fans in bedrooms. It eliminates those things because chances are they are not 500 watts or greater, or they are not, or they're going to be on the lighting circuit, so they're already factored in, those type of things. So I think at the end of the day, it all works out. that type of thing. But on an exam, if you forget and you don't want to put it in as an appliance, and you just don't forget, here's my key takeaway. Don't think that I can ignore it. If I have a pull pump motor, I have to account for it. Okay. If I have a trash, let's say a grinder pump, I have to account for it. How do I account for it? Well, grinder pump, people say, is that an appliance? Okay, well, tell you what, let's try something real quick. Let me check something out here. So this gives me a good opportunity to try something out real quick. Let's do this. Let's go here. And let's see here. We're at Trade Hog. Everybody familiar? Could get an opportunity to do Trade Hog. Let's go ask Trade Hog. Let's see. So remember, crap in, crap out. This is in a dwelling unit. Is a grinder pump considered an appliance when applying 220.53 in a load calculation? Interesting. Here we go. Just showing you how to use Trade Hog. Let's see what it says. I do it on the fly, folks. Okay, so it says in a dwelling unit, it says a grinder pump can be considered an appliance when applying NEC 220.53 for load calculation. The 220.53 for the demand factor to apply to 4 or more appliances fastened in place other than those used for cooking, space heating, yada, yada, yada. Very good. I'm glad it was detailed. Important. It's important to ensure that the grinder pump is not used for cooking or spacing. I don't know why the hell you would use it for cooking. So that seemed weird. Anyway, there you go. Another pump. Another question. Let's do a new one. These are the kind of things that you can use Trade Hog for, by the way. I actually agree with its interpretation there. Is a pool pump motor considered an appliance when applying 220.53 in a dwelling load calculation? So you guys, for those that have Trade Hog, this is one of the examples that you can use it for, okay? I don't know, it's becoming so popular that I'm not sure we're thinking about branching off Trade Hog because, again, the number of people signing up for it. And, oh, by the way, we did add annual memberships for those that are interested. Let's see here. And for those that, hold on here. Okay, so in the context of 220, a pool pump, it says is not considered an appliance when applying 220.53 for a dwelling unit calculation. It says 220.53 addresses the demand factors for appliances that are fastened in place, yada, yada. However, a pool pump motor is typically considered as part of pool equipment and is not a general appliance. Okay. Now watch this, okay? Because I'm going to tend to agree to that. That's why I told you there's 2 ways to do this. You can add the motor afterwards, okay? But watch this. I'm going to challenge them. Watch this. So I say, watch me say, I disagree. Watch this. Let's see. I say, I disagree. I believe, I'm going to see if I'm going to force them. I believe the pool pump motor is standardized sizing and meets the NEC definition of appliance. Good morning, Douglas. Glad you got the wire waffle. Can give them some feedback and let them know how the wire waffle did for you. Watch. I'm gonna argue with him. So let's clarify this with a reference. According to Article 100, appliance is defined as utilization equipment. Folks, let me move the mic here so I can read this because I'm having trouble reading today. According to the 100, utilized equipment generally other than industrial that is normally built in standardized sizes or types and installed as a unit to perform one or more functions such as clothes washing, air conditioning, yada, 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 yada. A pool pump motor could indeed fit this definition as it is a standardized piece of equipment used for a specific function, circulating water with a pool. Therefore, it can be considered as an appliance under this definition. However, when applying 220.53, which allows for demand factors for 4 or more appliances fast in place, the key consideration is whether the pool pump motor is part of the general appliance load or if it is considered separately due to specific applications related to pool pump equipment. In practice, pool equipment, including the pool pump motor, is often treated separately in load calculations because it is typically not part of the general household appliance load. Instead, it is part of a specific load associated with the pool installation, which is considered under 680. Therefore, while the pool pump motor can be considered an appliance by definition, its treatment in load calculations may differ based on the specific application in the context of the installation. For precise applications, always consider the specific requirements and context of the installation and consult with the local AHJ. That is actually pretty damn good advice. Okay, so what I mean by this is, and this kind of led me to this. If you use the pool pump motor and you added it and considered it in your load calculation, it would assume that the house is getting a pool that is being calculated in with the overall load calculation. After that, if the load's already been done and the house is already built and they're adding a pool later, then it's totally calculated differently and added. Obviously, it's not going to be added to any application for appliances. It's going to be added as an actual load that gets added to an existing dwelling calculation. So that's what it means by that. I think in the real world, whether you add it as an appliance and apply the 75, or you take it, remember what I said, add it separately at the end at its full FLC value, becomes irrelevant, that type of thing. And I think it was 4 amps. And 4 amps is not going to make or break the day. Now, somebody might say, yeah, Paul, but if they wrote an exam question specifically in order to, that 4 amps is going to make a difference. Okay, do you really think that the code, I know you think this. I do, because I get a lot of people that call me all the time, say, I failed it by one question. Whatever. They really think that the code making, that the people that write these exam questions are really trying to screw you at that last little bit. And they're not. They really are not. I've been on these committees. We don't have the time nor the luxury or care to do that. Okay? So my question to you is that it's very simple if you're on an exam and you're doing calculations. Part of the struggle is if you know this, then you can do the calculation with the value as an appliance and see what your value is. It matches the answers. Or you can add it separately and just add it at the end. It's the only difference is that value that takes it at 75% that you get to reduce it. That's the only difference. So if that's the only difference between what your answer is, right, and what your calculation is, then you can kind of tell what they did. They wanted you to add it as an appliance, or they wanted you to add it separately. I guess my main thing is so many people get bogged down with adding additional motors or different loads that if you can justify it in your mind that it's appliance, okay? And then in that scenario, I'll give you an example of this is a garbage disposer. A garbage disposer is really, if you think about it, really not much different than a pool pump motor. The only difference is instead of spinning the mechanism to grind up crap, junk in your sink, the difference is the pool pump motor as an impeller, it's moving water, right? So again, grinder pumps is really not a whole lot different, but yet we both know that you're going to be using a garbage disposer as an appliance because that's a typical appliance. And so we would think of that because that's part of the house. A grinder pump, since that is part of the house, then you would include it, for example, as an appliance, even though it is basically a motor, okay? The other thing that I think probably would help a lot of people out is if we call it a grinder pump, if we don't call it a motor, then people don't seem to argue it and say, oh, crap, it's an appliance. But if we say pool pump motor, then we're calling it a motor, and so many people will say, well, then that's not an appliance. Okay. A dryer, electric dryer, it's got a motor in there that moves the drum, that it has a heating element. So it's got one or more elements that it's obviously an appliance. That's no question. A washing machine. obviously it's an appliance. It has a motor that moves the drum, and it has a mechanism that flows the water into it, that type of thing. So I think that I'm just trying to make life easier for people. People want things to be so cut and dry and say, well, if Paul says that all motors are an appliance, it's not what Paul's saying. Paul's saying that you need to look at every application, but I don't think in the scheme of life, in the scheme of answering a code question on an exam, they're not going to give you 50 motors. They're not going to give you 25. They might give you one motor that's questionable, two motors that are questionable, and you have to determine, does that fall under appliance or not, right? And I think that it does. Oh, I got another one. Hold on here. Watch this. Let's go back to the trade hog real quick. Anyway, this is also one way that you can use the hog, by the way. It is a gas furnace. Let's see, gas furnace motor. Blower motor. Hold on here. Blower motor considered an appliance for using 220.53 since the heat is gas. Okay, let's just see what it says. Oh, shit, I've reached my limit. Okay, there you go, folks. If you didn't know that, there is a limit. So I got to log in now because I reached my free limit. You get to play with the hog for 3, guys. And then it's going to say, no. Okay, let's see. Let me rephrase this. Is the gas furnace, let's see here, motor, let's see, the gas furnace blower motor, an appliance when applying 220.53 in the 2023 NEC, since there is no heat versus AC calculation in 220.60. I just like to give as much detail to the hog as possible, okay? And that's what you want to do. So let's go on and see what it says. And I still today play with the hog because, again, it's pulling up models that we load into it. So let's read here. It says, all right, in the 2023 NEC, and this is, by the way, why people like the hog, because it does pull code references, by the way. In 2023 NEC, 220.50 pertains to the calculation of loads for appliances in a dwelling unit. Specifically, it allows for the demand factors, yada, yada, yada. Let's see, other than those used for cooling, heating, and air conditioning. Okay, a gas furnace blower is considered part of the heating system rather than a standalone appliance. Therefore, it would not be included under the demand factors in 220.53 as the section excludes heating appliances. Instead of the blower motor would be part of the load calculation for the heating system as defined in 220, blah, blah, blah. That's the optional. It says for dwelling units, which includes heating and air conditioning. Okay, so here's where, therefore, when calculating the load of the dwelling unit, the blower motor of a gas furnace will be included in the heating load calculation rather than treating as a separate appliance, okay? Okay, so I'm going to challenge the hog, okay? I'm going to challenge it. I like challenging it. So I'm going to say, I disagree. And oh, by the way, the hog learns, and that's why I like to challenge it, because it does help the database. And all this stuff gets logged, so Jeff gets to see it, and we refeed information into the hog. So this is why I challenge it, by the way, if you didn't know. And you should do it as well. If you do have extra knowledge and you know that there's other ways to look at something, you always want to challenge it because it helps the model learn, by the way. And I'm not arguing with this because at the scheme of life, in the scheme of the real world, let me just explain. If I had gas heat and I'm doing AC, and AC is larger, obviously larger than the gas heat, and it's obviously going to be larger than the furnace. And if the furnace was only on to move the heat, so obviously if it's part of the furnace is part of the heating element and that's all it's doing, then in real scheme of life, if the AC is larger and I'm taking the AC over the heat, obviously because the heat's gas and the furnace is associated with the heat, it's not going to be the end of the world, right? Because If the AC is on, the furnace blower is not going to be on, right? So that's an example of non-coincident type of loading. The blower is not going to be on. Okay. Now, that's the kind of things that we have to think about. Okay, when we're doing these calculations, and again, in the scheme of life, the load calc, I don't think it's going to make a hell of a beans difference, because small amounts, one motor here, there on a calculation is not going to be the end of the world. Okay, so I don't want people to get so bogged down in that. But anyway, I'm going to challenge the hog real quick. I'm going to say I disagree. What do I want to disagree with? It says the gas, the heating is gas. And so there is nothing to calculate for the gas heating. There is an AC load that will be used, but I believe, okay, remember, just ask it what you want to ask it. Because I believe the furnace motor should be treated, I don't necessarily believe this, but I'm going to ask it, treated as a appliance for applying 220.53. Just how I want to ask it. I'm challenging it to see. For those that are interested in Trade Hog, again, you can try it out. We also now have annual memberships, so you don't have to have that monthly reoccurring thing, because some people don't like that. I get it. So let's see. In the context of 220, when dealing with a gas furnace, the primary heating component is indeed gas powered, and the electrical load is primarily from the blower motor in this scenario. The blower motor can be considered an appliance for the purpose of load calculations under 220.53. It is electrically powered device that is fastened in place. 220.53 allows the demand factors, blah, blah. Therefore, it can be treated as an appliance for the purpose of applying demand factors in 220.53. However, it is important to ensure that the blower motor is not part of the central air conditioning, as that would categorize it under air conditioning equipment, which is excluded from 220.53. If the blower motor is independent of the air conditioning system, then it can be included in the appliance load calculation under 220.53. So what you see here is Trade Hog, just like normal ChatGTP. This is important while we're doing this lesson. It's waffling. It waffles back and forth. And sadly, the code is like that. Now, you're going to have some people out there that are really so determined. They're like, no waffle. That it is a non-coincident load. So if that furnace blower motor is not blowing all, okay, this is important. If the furnace motor is not part of a central heating system or whatever that blows all of the air, whether it's AC or heat, if it is, then it can be accounted for in that type of thing. And if it's a separate blower that could be utilized either or, then I still have to account for that load, right? So I have no problem adding that as an appliance and applying the demand. It's a separate motor. It's part of a piece of equipment. I would add that as an appliance, and I would simply do that. That's how I would do it. If it's part of the system that's going to be AC versus heat, and even though it's heating, then I would still take it and compare it with the AC. And if the AC wins, I'm going with the AC. Then I would get rid of that. If the furnace only came on, for example, when the heat was going. If it's being utilized for both, right, then I have to account for it. There's nothing that I can do. I have to account for it. And y'all remember the load calculations we did when we did single family dwellings? Y'all remember when we did the AC and we had the outside condensing unit? We had the compressor, we had the condensing fan, and we had the air handler inside with the blower, right? And we compared that to the heat, and we had heat strips, and then we had the fan, the air handler fan. Remember that we had to add the air handler for both of them Because regardless, if that's going to be going when both are going, if that's moving air through the system, then we had to account for it for both. And that's when we compared heat versus AC. But remember, we still added the air handler in both, right? So what I'm saying is if we had an AC and we had gas heat with a blower furnace motor, we still have to account for that blower furnace motor, right? Now, your question is, where do I add it? Do I add it as an appliance or do I add it as a separate? I believe that you can, I personally believe that you just add it as an appliance. As long as, again, it is, obviously it's going to be a quarter horsepower or greater, or 500 watts. Then you would add it as a part of that type of thing, right? People can disagree. That's fine. You can say, no, Paul, you need to take it as full FLC and add it to the end. That's fine. Chances are, like I said, you're only going to see a difference of a couple amps. In the scheme of life, it is not going to make a difference. There's enough diversity, okay? So that was the whole point of the lesson really today, was to make you think about how you would apply it. And also, and sometimes people want me to challenge I'll challenge the hog one more time and I'll say, you are full of crap. It is not an appliance. It is part of the heating and will only be blowing when the gas heat is running. Okay. Okay. So I'm devil advocate of the hog. I'm probably gonna blow the damn hog up, or no, Jeff will be crazy. But anyway, I'm gonna challenge it again. All right, look. I apologize for the confusion. Let's clarify. In the context of NEC, the gas furnace blower motor is typically considered part of the heating system. Even though the primary heating source is gas, the blower motor is integral to the operation of the heating system, as it circulates air through the ducts when the furnace is operating. 220.53 applies to appliances that are fastened in place other than those used for cooking, heating, and air conditioning. Since the blower motor is part of the heating system, it would not be classified as a separate appliance under 220.53. Instead, it is part of the heating load, even if the heating source is gas. For load calculations, the blower motor would be included in the heating load calculation as outlined into yada, 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 yada. That's for different. To ensure that the actual load associated with the blower motors is accounted for in the overall load calculation for the dwelling unit. Okay? So it seems like it flip-flopped again, right? But in reality, it didn't. Because remember what we said that is in the calculation is if we've determined, for example, that, and I'll show you real quick, if we determined in 220.53 that furnace was only going to operate when that heating was going on, okay, right? If we determined it was only going to operate during that scenario, then we would come down here and we would say, okay, well, it's part of that space heating type of equipment application. Then again, we can argue that it's going to be counteracted for. So in my mind, if I'm comparing it, and the furnace can only blow when the gas feed is going, and I'm already doing an AC calculation, and let's just say I have a heat pump, or a AC, air conditioning system, and not a heat pump, but an air conditioning system, central air, then I would argue that if I have a blower on this, and if that blower was an air handler, then I'm going to account for it. And I would compare the two if it was a universal blower. In this case, I will argue that that's a furnace for gas heat only, and it's only going to run when the gas is running. If the AC loads are greater, right, than the gas with the furnace blower, so if the AC loads are greater anyway, then I'm not going to make it brain surgery. I'm not even going to consider that furnace motor load. I'm going to put that in the category of heating. Even though it was gas heat, it still had an element that was associated with it and I would probably get rid of it and not use it if the AC was larger. You get me? But just be careful. If you want to add that furnace motor itself under the appliances, I think that you would be justified if it wasn't associated with both the AC and the heat, only with the heat. Then I think that you could do that and not have a problem. Okay? Be all right. So, all right. All right, folks, let's go real quick over, again, just some conversations today. I just wanted to have a little open conversation about that type of stuff today. Nothing too deep, just things to think about. But I will be doing a calculation for everybody that does have multiple motors in it to give my opinion. I am more than sure there's somebody out there, probably the Stalcup boys or whatever, that are going to argue differently and cut up this video to say, Paul's a wishy-washy, Paul's a wishy-washy. You know, the code is not clean cut. You have to try to determine whether something is an appliance or not. If it is an appliance, then add it to the appliance and apply the 75%. Most cases, this is just for exam, because in the real world, you're going to use the optional method anyway, and you're just going to take nameplate of those type of things. And it's a nameplate. It's a motor. It's a nameplate. So you're going to add it to the list, that type of thing. So I think that the easiest way to do it is if it was a gas heat and it does have a furnace that only runs and blows the air when the furnace is running, then I think that is the heat. And maybe it doesn't have heat strips, so it's not some big number. It's just the blower motor, right? And I'm going to compare that to the AC. If the AC is greater, then I'm just going to keep the AC load and say screw it. And then some people will say, no, add it to the appliances and apply the 75 if you have 4 or more. Okay. And then some people even say, you know what? Just add that motor to the end at 100%. Just add it to the end. Unless it's the largest motor, then it would be at 125%. You get what I'm saying? So there's multiple ways you can tackle it. At the end of the day, I don't think it's going to make one hill of beans in your overall calculation. Okay? I really don't. We're talking probably anywhere between 3 to 4 amps, again, which is, you know, on an exam, it's still going to put you with the right answer. You just go to the closest possible answer, and that's going to be okay for you. All right? Let's spin the wheel. I got to get going here, guys. I do have a doctor's appointment that I have to get to. They're concerned with the diabetes and this cold. The numbers are going crazy, so I do have to go to the doctor here. So let's see here. Minimalist wallet. So you're in the drawing for one of those wallets. Got one right here, by the way. Right there. Nice little Code Nerd. Well, this is a Code Strong ones. These are pretty cool. So we got that. So you're in the drawing for that. Congratulations. Drawing's coming in a couple days. What else we got here? You going to get you're in the drawing for the 12 months of Trade Hog. We just saw Trade Hog in action. So you're in there for the Trade Hog drawing, the basic. By the way, I think that is it's a $200 and some value there, buddy. So hopefully good luck. All right. Let's do it again here. Today's lesson, folks, by the way, was just the ways to make you think. You know, when I do that video and shows all the motors, I will give you more of my personal opinion to that. I really wanted to have an example on the screen so I can show you how I apply it. So, so that was just wanted to give you my thoughts on that today. So this is NFC card. These are great NFC cards. You can reprogram them yourself. That's what they look like, by the way. So congratulations to you, Angel. You're in the drawing for that. Let's see what we got here. Frank, did you already get some of these? I try not to give more than one, because we want to make sure that as many people can get one of these to try them out. So I'll spin again for you, Frank, if you have a waffle. I don't know if I sent you waffles or not, that type of thing. If you want it, let me know. If not, we'll spin it again, that type of thing. All right. Jonathan, you've got the hog, but you never log in. Well, that's the problem with those reoccurring things. It sits on the mind that, damn, I'm paying for this every month and I don't use it. If you don't use it, it may not be for you. But a lot of people now we're asking for the annuals so that they don't have to worry about this month to month to eat away their brain. Even if they just use the basic one, the basic one, it's like $105 for a year's access of the basic one. And I mean, not basic, excuse me, the light version. Majority of people just will need the light, but again, it's cheaper. All the annual stuff that we're doing for Trade Hog now, folks, is actually cheaper than the monthly. So you might think of going annual. That way you ain't got to worry about it. You want to spin it again? All right, Frank, spin it again. No music time this time. I just spin it. Starting to go downhill. Starting to feel very not so good this morning for some reason. I hope that's not a sign. All right, let's see here. Frank, flashcards, 2023 flashcards. So we'll do 2023 flashcards. Also, I should mention that we have a new set of flashcards coming out in the next couple of weeks. Took a look out for it. It's going to be flashcards on calculations. So it's going to be just flashcards with some base, calculations in them. So for people working calculations. So if that comes out, Frank, and you'd rather wait on the calculation flashcards, we'll leave that choice up to you. That type of scenario. Not a big deal. All right. Beatbox. I'm not going to do beat. I don't feel like I can do the beatbox today. All right, one more. That's the best I got for you, Paul. All right. Manny Sanchez, you're in the drawing for the knife. Okay, we still have some of those knives left, that type of thing. All right, folks. Hey, thanks for putting it up with me today. We got a chance to mess with the hog a little bit. We got a chance to question the hog, push back and forth on the hog. There'll be people that tell you one way or another. I think the big takeaway from today is that if you do have other loads in your load calculation, just make sure you account for them. Don't think, it's like, well, where do I account for them? Well, the worst case scenario is you never want to be undersized for your service. So the worst case scenario is if you have to use a standard method, then make sure if you have additional motors that you're going to say are not appliances and you feel strongly that they're not appliances, or if they're things that are not directly involved with the dwelling, like a pool pump is not. A pool pump, you can argue, is basically applies to the pool, which is detached from the dwelling. If that's how you want to set your criteria in the real world, that's fine. On an exam, I don't think this is going to be an issue, so I wouldn't worry about it. So that's the only reason I bring it up. But whatever criteria, at the end of the day, I think that in a load calc, even for an exam or in the real world, it's going to get you close enough. Example, many people forget to take the largest motor and try to get that 25 additional for the largest motor, which you take the largest motor in the dwelling at 125% and the sum of all the other motors. We get that direction from 430.24, by the way, back in 220.50 sends us there. So that's why we get it. So everybody wonders where that 25% of the largest motor comes from. It comes from the fact that you're supposed to take the largest motor at 125, but we usually don't. We just take it at its rating. So that's why we're trying to get that additional 25. So if you're hunting in the code to find where it says take the largest motor at 125%, if you're looking for that language, you're not going to find it. Okay, that specifically. What you're going to go is to 220.50, which is ultimately going to send you to 220. It's going to send you to the 430.24, and that's where you're going to see that it says, oh, you got multiple motors in the building. Okay, take the largest one at 125% and the rest at 100%. Well, you've already taken all the motors at 100%, regardless of D rating. You've already taken them at their face value, so just find the largest one and get me 25% of that and add it to the load. That's all that's doing. So if you're looking for that language, you're not going to find it. That's why the code can be difficult. I guess what I'm saying is, if you forget to do that 25% of the largest motor, it's not the end of the world. You're still going to be able, you might not get the exact answer on the question on the exam. It might not be the exact numbers. You choose the closest one. Please don't lose sleep over it. I get a lot of people who really lose sleep over the minutia of a calculation. And it's really not that hard when you think about the fact that it could be a couple amps off. That's okay. Choose the best, the one, whatever number is closest to what you calculate, unless you totally went screwy somewhere. Choose the answer that is closest to what your calculation works out. And that's the best thing to do, rather than get bogged down on it and cause you too much stress. You with me? All right, folks. Till next time, stay safe. God bless. And we will catch you on another episode of Coffee Hour. It was a great conversation today. Hopefully you got something out of it. Have a great weekend, and we will catch you on Monday for another lesson. Peace out.